from the Library of Congress and the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture.
So, Ms. Dahmer, we were talking about when you were out at Alcorn in the early 1940s, and can you tell me what it was like?
The campus was the building. We didn't have that many buildings on the campus, and they were far apart. I was out there about 2 months ago, and it looked like a city beside what we had.
Yeah. Were most of the men gone? Was it mostly females on
It
campus?
was. They was in the World War II was really going fast for the black community. There was very few men on the campus.
And you said you went to Alcorn for 2 years.
Yes, and then I transferred to Tennessee A&I.
What made you transfer?
After my brothers had gone to Alcorn, they found out well, if you want to do graduate work, you'd have to do makeup work coming out of Alcorn.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I found that out when I got to Tennessee, because the dean that was at Tennessee, he used to work at Alcorn. He threw out all my education. He kept me there a quarter longer than I would have been there, because I went to summer school and I would have been out. I had to go back and pick up that education. He said that education I had at Alcorn was old as he was, but that wasn't my fault.
Mm-hmm.
Alcorn should have offered better.
Mm-hmm. Could you tell the difference in the classes between
Oh
the two?
yes, oh yes.
Yeah. Sounds like you like Tennessee.
Well, they were much harder,
Mm-hmm.
because really we didn't have the foundation that we should have had.
Mm-hmm. Even though you actually probably had a better education coming into it than most African Americans had opportunity for at the time.
I don't know, these children that came out of city school were so much far advanced than we were.
Was it? You think that was the difference?
Mm-hmm. Even Hattiesburg School, Laurel School, they were far more advanced than we were.
Yeah. Do you think that was because they put more resources into it, or they had teachers with more education?
I think they had more money to do something with.
Mm-hmm.
They probably had later books and we never saw a new book.
Well,
Never saw a new set of encyclopedia.
Well, from what we were talking about earlier, it sounds like that most of the resources for the schools you went to came from the black community, and that there wasn't much contribution from the government.
I think they were supposed to have given us, but they always took the best for their children, and we got what left over.
Mm-hmm. What did you do after you left Tennessee A&I? Did you graduate with your...
I graduated in 1947.
Bachelor's?
I got a bachelor's degree in home economics.
What did you do
I
after you
found a
graduated?
job in Jasper County, and I taught home economics in Jasper County. I believe it was 3 years. Then I came to Jones County, and from Jones County I came to Forest County. I taught home economics several years in Forest County.
What made you move from one school to another?
Better salaries,
Mm-hmm.
different in the pay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What were those schools like that you were teaching in?
They was just a step ahead of the high school I finished with.
Yeah.
We didn't have the resources for the children either, but we did the best we could as teachers. We had a lot of college graduates by the time I was teaching. They didn't have them when I was going to school. In fact, they might have had one. I can think maybe 1 or 2 graduates from college. Most of them were finished at those normal schools.
Mm-hmm. I know people could teach with a high school degree in those early years.
If they could pass that test in the superintendent's office, which he couldn't pass.
So that was the white superintendent.
Uh-huh. They couldn't help you with anything when you went on there. 'Cause I know when I was making my first home economic report, I went on and asked him, did they have the forms? And he said, no. Look at what the other teachers did. You can fix yours like that.
Where would your report go to?
It would go to the county, and I think they would send it to the state. I don't know where it would go after then, but we had to make reports.
Was home economics related to the county extension?
Yes.
Okay. All right. How did you meet Mr. Dahmer?
They needed a home economic teacher down here, and they came up there, and I was available. I was available because they paid more money.
So you were available because you wanted to be available.
Well, the money will make you available.
Yeah, yeah. And so you came and you were teaching in Hattiesburg in Forest County?
Teaching in Forest County, right out there where Dennis went out there, where Dennis is making his serpent. That's what we were teaching at.
Oh, so you were right here in Kelly Settlement
Right
teaching.
in Kelly Settlement.
Do you remember when you met Mr. Dahmer for the first time?
Yeah, he came up to my house to enter. He and several more people came up there to interview me about the job. And of course, I was cooking dinner, and they didn't leave until 8.
They stayed for dinner.
Mm-hmm.
You weren't going to get them out.
And I don't know if they was even invited for dinner, but we probably invited them. But he didn't leave till 8. I know that much.
And was it like inevitable after that moment?
Well, no.
No.
It developed later on.
Yeah, yeah. So did you like teaching here in Kelly Settlement?
Yes.
Yeah.
I like teaching, yeah. I taught children till they integrated to schools. And after they integrated to school, they told the principal they didn't tell them who to hire, but they told them who not to hire. And my name was on that list.
So was that in 70 or 66? I know that they integrated at different times.
Now they integrated in.
Was it with freedom of choice or was it after that?
It was before freedom of choice. They consolidated all the black schools in Forest County into one school, and that was named at Earl Trevilian.
And that's when they didn't rehire you?
That's when they didn't rehire me. They built a new school down there for all the black students in Forest County. The white school kept their schools where they were. Our children had to pass by them going to that school.
And that was probably in the late 50s or 60s?
I believe it was in the 50s, I believe.
Yeah. And so when they consolidated at Earl Trevilian, you stopped teaching?
I stopped teaching in Forest County.
Okay.
I was later, that same year, I believe they consolidated. I was able to get a job in Perry County.
Where is Perry? How far away is that?
30 Mile, Richton.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And were you still teaching home economics?
No.
Is that when you went to
By then I had gone to elementary. I had gone to elementary before I left Forest County High. I went to secondary first and then elementary.
Okay. Can you tell me about Mr. Dahmer? What was he like?
If I've ever seen a Christian person, he was one. He put Christianity into practice. He was really concerned about his fellow man. We had a comfortable living on the farm, in the sawmill, in the grocery store, and the planer mill. At that time, we had a very comfortable living. But he wanted to make things better for other people.
When you married, did he own all this land, or was he working with other family members?
He owned this right here. And of course, he had sisters and brothers that owned land here. He was working some of their land.
So he worked his own land and their land?
And some of their land.
Before you had children, who helped him work on the land?
He had hired help.
Okay.
He had hired help. And of course, he had tractors. A tractor can do far more than a horse or mule can with a plow. And he first started with a 1-row tractor, and then he moved to a 2-row tractor, and that was really could do something. And then as his boys grew up, Dennis was driving the tractor. Dennis was driving the cotton picker before he was 12 years old. So his children learned to work early. Betty was driving a car before she was 10. Because the incident that when they bought our house, Betty was just 10 and a half.
And when she was, I want to ask you about that, but I thought I'd maybe ask you some other things first.
Yes.
When she was driving a car at the age of 10 or around that, would she do that just here around the farm?
Around the place. No, you didn't let her get out on the road. And maybe she'd go from the house or maybe up to her aunt's house on the road. But the traffic was nothing like it is now. It wasn't as dangerous. They didn't have to have a driving license around here. Children on the farm learn to drive early, because all you need them to do is get off on the gas and let the truck roll. Then get on the brakes to stop the truck from rolling. And when they keep on doing that, somebody just usually go and put it in Gale form, but they learn to put it in there themselves early.
Well, they had a lot of responsibility.
Yes, everybody helped.
So, how many children did you all have?
Okay, let me count them up. We had 6 boys, 7.
And as soon as they were old enough, they would all help on the farm?
Everybody had something to do. Betty Butcher, she worked all her life. Even when we were planting cotton, Betty could put the cotton seeds in the plant on the tractor. They were light. And she would sit on the truck and he'd back up there, she put the cotton seeds in. Dennis would put the fertilizer in the hamper there. I was here cooking dinner because on the farm you want dinner right at the time the people's coming out and feel hungry.
So would you cook for everybody working on the
Oh,
farm?
yes. Cook for everybody.
That's a big job. So I know that you mentioned the cotton and the sawmill.
And the corn, peanuts, and we had sugar cane. All of that brought in money.
And you also had a store?
Yeah, we had a grocery store.
Did you and the children ever work in the store?
No, his aunt run the store.
So she would just take care of it?
Only thing I did, I fill out the report for their sale tax for the store. I fill out the report for their Social Security for the people who worked at the sawmill.
So you would do some of the paperwork, some of the bookkeeping.
Yeah.
When did you first try to register to vote?
Now I don't know what year it was.
Emily, I'm going to...
I don't know what year it was. But I was some of the first that tried to register to vote.
Here in Hattiesburg?
Here in Hattiesburg.
So you just mentioned you were one of the first people in the Hattiesburg area to try to register to vote.
We would go down, fill out the application. Mr. Lynn never looked at you. And you would say, I've got to fill out, he said, and turn around. He gave me a card, 2x5 card with the Constitution on not all the Constitution, some of the Constitution on the card. He told me to read that. I didn't tell him what it meant. And of course, I read it, and I could very well explain it to him. He would tell me, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You didn't pass. He never listened.
When you would go down, would you go by yourself? Or
No, Vernon usually went with me.
So the two of you would go?
And he would go with everybody that he could go down there. And of course, they took your tag number.
When you were doing that, is that when they would put your name in the paper for trying to register?
What they really would do was send it in to your employment. But at that time, we'd already made affidavits out to an organization we gave money to. NACP was a no-no. You could not give them any money. And we had to have that notarized.
So you would have the deposition notarized, or the...
We'd have to have the form that we fill out, the organization that we gave money to, we'd have to have that notarized.
You mean, though, for the teachers?
For the teachers, yeah.
Yeah, and then that they would fire you if you...
If you gave money to NACP. We didn't have that nerve to say we gave it to them.
So you wouldn't put that on the form?
No, nobody would put it on the form. They wanted a job.
Were you a member, though, at that time?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you remember. So when you would go down to register, was Mr. Dahmer registered at that time? Was
No,
he able to?
he never had a chance to register. He never had a chance to vote. His card came after we buried him.
I didn't know that.
No, he never had a chance to vote.
So all of those years of trying.
He never had a chance to vote. I always go to I never want to vote an absentee. I never go to I voted once at the courthouse when I had a hip replacement. It was on a walker. But I always go to the polling place to vote. I go to the place they wouldn't let me go.
Are any of the same people there?
No.
But they were when you first started. What was that like?
Well, by then things had changed some. In fact, I worked with some of them that were in his office. I was the election commissioner now for 3 terms of District 2 out in this area.
Did you run for that?
Office, yes.
How soon did you run for that office after the vote, after Mr. Dahmer was killed?
These are questions I
It
cannot
doesn't have to be
answer.
like exact dates, but was it soon after that?
No,
It was a little while.
probably some 10 or 15 years after that.
I can
We had a lady that was running for it, and I guess I can say this, it won't be a white. She had a white opponent, and she refused to run against him.
Was she afraid?
She said she just didn't like competition. She was well qualified. She had a PhD degree.
And she didn't feel comfortable running against the white?
And when they told me, we had, I think she told the person that was helping her, who had helped her get in office, she must have told them on a Thursday or Wednesday morning that she wasn't going to run. And they wanted Betty to run, but Betty couldn't run because of her job. By then I had retired. And we got out there from Wednesday night and got enough signatures on the form for me to qualify.
I bet it was, you had a lot of connections you could draw on for that.
We had a lot of help because we called key peoples in the community, and if they were going to sign it, they put their lights on. We had several people going with forms. My daughter-in-law was one of them who was helping me. She was off from work or got off from work. I can't remember how many signatures we had to have, but we had more than enough. When they got to the number, they just stopped.
I guess you probably always did more than you needed.
Yeah.
What was it like to be elected election commissioner after being kept out of voting for so long?
It was a wonderful feeling to be able to help with something that they had denied me of. And I made sure that nobody else was denied. We followed the law. If it wasn't the law, we didn't do it.
That must have been a nice change to be able to impact that in such a tangible way.
Yes, and be able to work. Now, it's only 2 black ones down there. They were predominantly white, but we got along good.
Yeah. So the attitude had changed by that time a little bit?
Well, I need to say this, and I've said it wrong, so many, all the white people wasn't bad. There was always some good white people, but just so many of them wasn't nice to us. There was always some good white people.
Did any of them come out of their way to talk to you during the early days, or let you know that there was some interest, or is it just that they didn't go out of their way to cause
Yeah,
trouble?
some did, but I'm not going to mention them families because they may have some family friends here still around here. Not only did the white people take caution, do things, they would have put them out of business.
Citizens Council will go after anybody. We were talking earlier. Can you remember when you first found out about the NAACP? Do you remember? Did your parents belong?
No, I don't think we knew about it in Jasper County at that time. I really found out about it when we came down here that it was active.
Would you ever go to meetings?
They had the meetings in the house, in the living room, right here on this same spot. I sat out there on the carport. I was the lookout person. And often the chief of police came out here one day. I didn't know who he was, but I was hollering and telling him, you need to come to the door. It's a white man pulling about you in the car. And Ronald came out and said, Chief, what brought you out here? Chief of police came right out there in the yard and went on out and met him. The people was in the house then.
Was this before Curtis and Hollis came out here?
Yes.
So this was the early days.
This was before they came to live with us.
You know, in Claiborne County, the people that belonged to the NAACP at that time, it was about 10 people, and they told me that they used to burn the cards. Did people do that around here? They wouldn't want to be caught with the NAACP card.
I don't remember any of that going on, but it was a very few of them here too, because they could hold a meeting in the living room and then have some room.
Were they people you knew? Were they people
Yes.
who lived right around
There
here?
was people we knew and lived right around here.
What kinds of things were you doing with the NAACP?
They was making strategy to register to vote. And they was making strategy of who's so much as you don't need to spend your money with. These are the kind of things they were doing.
Would Medgar Evers come to those meetings?
No, Medgar Evers was the state president.
He didn't ever come to
No, he didn't ever come here to a local meeting here.
Dory Ladner and Joyce Ladner?
They was young children then. They were young. They wasn't
Yeah, they said they remember working with the NAACP branch.
Yeah, with their aunt, with his sister.
That's-
They all was in the same church together.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask. Is that Miss Beard?
Yeah, they was
Yeah.
all in the same church together.
Can you tell me what she was like?
She was very fast-skinned. Her hair came down to here. They were holiness people. They didn't believe in cutting their hair.
Yeah.
They just wore it long.
And she worked with the young people on the
Yeah, with the
NAACP.
NAACP. Mm-hmm.
Did they live close by?
They live right out there where Dennis is making a soap. All of this was name of land. They all live right in this area.
So the whole family lived
Close. The ones that were here, most of the children went north now.
Okay. Where
They
were
were-
they living?
Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
mostly. California. They were fast-skinned. They just crossed on over.
So
Some
they
of them.
passed.
They crossed on over. Some of them couldn't even come to his funeral because they had been going for white all their lives.
That must have been. Were you in contact with them, or was he in contact with them?
Yes, the family was in contact with him because once when his mother got real sick, one of the brothers came.
I would
Yeah.
think it would be hard for them to, not be able to come back for something like that.
They couldn't come back for it though because they had gone for white most of their lives. They couldn't
Yeah.
come back to a black man's funeral when they was passing for white.
When you were having those NAACP meetings at the house and trying to register to vote, were you afraid ever?
Yes, yes. I answered the door at night. Vernon didn't answer any door at night. We were getting threats. I broke out all the way up here my neck, all the way down here. Yes, I was afraid. Nobody wants to die.
How did you cope with that?
Prayer and leaning on him, and we were strength to each other.
Did you ever think about, giving up the fight and doing
Well,
something different?
I knew he wouldn't give it up, but I do wish, I've said it many times, I wish he'd let the last two children get grown. The rest of them were grown. Betty was 10 and a half, and Dennis would have made 12 on the 2nd of February. This happened on the 10th of January. I think he should have let them get grown. But by the time they got grown, I reckon nothing would have been done.
Did you all talk about that at the time?
Well, he kept saying if we don't do it now, it won't ever get done.
What did you think?
I was afraid. He was afraid.
But he
We didn't let him go nowhere in a car by himself. Dennis could drive well, even though he didn't have no license. We told him to get him, if something happened to him, if somebody shoot in that car, and shoot him to get him to the hospital, run the lights if he had to, and we would deal with that later. He was not on the tractor in the field by himself. Somebody was always with him. Of course, he always had a girl. He was one of these people that didn't try to drive when he was going there, where he had to see everything, but he didn't let a car pass him. He would get in the middle of the road before he could let the car pass because he was afraid they would shoot him.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't know who it was in that car behind him. He didn't let them pass him. We kept the front porch light off because we were afraid they would shoot him coming in the door or something.
I read somewhere, I don't know if it's true, but that before the attack on the house, you all had just stopped keeping watch all night.
We stopped sleeping in shifts. I would sleep the first part of the night when I got through with supper and the clothes ready, especially during school days for the children and everything, everybody's school clothes ready. I'd go to bed, and then I'd get up at 12, put on my clothes because I know I couldn't go back to sleep. Then he would go to sleep, and I'd stay awake until day. Sometime I would be washing, moving around in the house quietly with no lights on. And on the front, and I had made curtains for the living room and the den. And when we went out there one night, you could see through the curtain. You could see figures through there. So I had to take all them down and line them so you couldn't see through them.
So sort of blackout curtains,
Mm-hmm.
like just for the protection of that.
On the outside.
Did people drive by and shoot before the night that they burned?
Oh, they shot up the mailbox. They would shoot up windows out at the store. They put up the Klan sign, KK. They nailed them up on posts and he would tear them down. People was afraid, and those people who tell you they wasn't afraid, they not telling you the truth.
Mm-hmm. Did he know any of the people that were doing the harassment?
I don't know if he knew any of them or not. But the one that attacked us that night, they came out in Jones County.
Yeah. Did you all ever talk to the sheriff or the police?
What good would he do when he was one of them? If he wasn't one of them, his daddy was one of them, his brother was one of them, his cousin. They were all in this together. Wasn't no use to call the sheriff or police.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever talk to the Justice Department lawyers when they had the lawsuit against Theron Lynn?
Yes, I was one of the 18 that he had to issue the voter registration card to. We didn't have to go back and register anymore.
Can you tell me about that?
I went to the court in New Orleans.
So did you testify?
No, I didn't testify. We had very few people testify. Mr. Lincoln was the one on the stand most of the time, with John Doe asking him questions.
Were you at the court?
Yes, I was there. We went every day.
What was it like to see him have to answer?
I was glad to see him one time. He was afraid then. He was not happy at all.
And so they were able to prove that your applications were qualified, and so they forced him to put you on the rolls?
What really broke it open was Vernon's sister was her name was not Damon anymore. She was Erling Beard. And a neighbor out there on the other side of her, they were very fair-skinned people. They went down in the register to vote. They didn't ask them any questions. They didn't ask them to read the Constitution. All they asked his sister was, "What took you so long?" And she told them, "I had my mind on other things and vote wasn't one of them." They thought that was so funny. And she was setting them up then. They allowed those two people to register. They didn't ask them if they were black. They didn't ask them if they were white. They just looked at them and let them register because they thought they were white.
So after that, that was the proof
that was
needed?
the proof we needed,
Mm-hmm.
that he was segregating against black people.
Mm-hmm. So were you all the first group that he had to put on the rolls?
Yes, the 18 of them. I can't remember all 18 of them now. Harold was one of them, Vernon was one of them, I was one of them, and some more people. 18 of us that he had to allow to register.
And was that trial, was that in Hattiesburg?
They had the first trial for him, I believe, in Jackson.
Okay.
I didn't go to that trial because all of the people who was here that the court said he must send us the voter registration card did not have to testify against him.
Because you had done the affidavits?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
But I wanted to go to court because the United States Attorney General was going to be down there and we wanted to see him.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't let us take any pictures, of course.
Was that Bobby Kennedy?
No.
You mean John Doe?
John Doe was down there.
Okay, yeah. Did you know him?
No, I met him
Yeah.
down there.
What was it like to meet him?
Wonderful. And a young black man, he must have been in about 16 or 18. He had his camera, he took a picture and they were going to put him in jail. We was in that federal courthouse and that man was mean to that young man.
Yeah. Was that before Judge Cox?
No, that was with the 3 judges.
Oh, okay, the panel.
What was the one in Atlanta, one in New Orleans, one in Houston? What was the name of them? I can't think of the name of them.
But it was the 3-court panel
Mm-hmm.
that it was appealed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We talked earlier that when SNCC got organized and COFO, that Hollis Watkins and Curtis Hayes out of Macomb came and stayed.
He went to the NACP meeting in Jackson. What I know and everything, he was coming back with 2 young men in a suitcase.
So he went to a meeting by himself and came back with
And came back with 2. As if I didn't have enough to do.
What did he say? What did you say to him?
Nothing. He said they'll be staying with us. They're going to help with the voter registration.
Yeah. Can you tell me about what Hollis and Curtis were like then?
They were just like our other children. Here, they had to work like everybody else. Whatever around the house needed to be done, they had to do their share of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then when the work was over with, they'd go out in the community and try to get people to register and vote.
Do you know who they were talking to?
They would talk to community people here.
Mm-hmm.
And they wired Hollis one time to go around to talk with their own land.
Yeah. What, do you know how that went?
It went good.
Okay, we're back.
I've been told that he was a very intimidating person, Mr. Lynn.
He was, his size and his
Yeah.
voice.
Yeah. Well, how would he treat people?
He treated me all right now.
Yeah.
We all were, to all the white people, we were girls and boys.
Mm-hmm. And what'd you call them?
Well, I called them by their name when I wasn't in their face.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They didn't have nothing. I hated them bad as they hated me.
Yeah. Because of the treatment?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell me what you remember about Freedom Summer?
I did not participate in nothing but cooking, getting food out there for them to eat, and helping with whatever need to be helped with.
Did people stay at your house?
I don't remember any of them staying here with us. Most of them lived in town because they could get around better down there than they had out here because they didn't have no train. If you didn't have a car out here, there wasn't no way they could walk from house to house out down there. But they did come out here for the picnic.
I've heard.
We cooked food for them. And we were the one that fixed the food, and they had a lady to fry fish for them, and I was fixing all the potato salad and all the other trimming for them. I was doing all that by myself.
Now, was this picnic for all of the volunteers?
All the volunteers that came down here to work.
And I've heard stories that it was a wonderful picnic.
It was, and the young man, I think by then, Hal had been called, they had drafted Hal and Alvin in the service then. So he had a young man driving a tractor to go get some melons out of the field. Instead of him coming back the way he told him to come, he went right through the white community with blacks and white up on that trailer. And that put a scare in us.
Did anything happen?
Nothing happened, but that wasn't the right thing to do.
Do you know why he didn't go the way?
He was young and gonna do what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
Instead of coming back across the dam the way he went and come on back up this road and stay in the black community, he went right out the other end of the field and went on down the road through the white community.
Did he know what he was doing?
Yeah, he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
But he probably didn't know how dangerous it was that would get him killed and all them people on there with him killed.
Mm-hmm. So your son Dennis was telling me that all of your older sons were getting drafted as soon as they turned 18.
Yeah, they made sure they got his workforce around. Now, I think Vernon Jr. volunteered, Marnez volunteered, and George volunteered, but Harold and Alvin did not volunteer. They drafted them. They drafted Alvin on crutches. He had hurt his foot, but they took him right on into service.
They didn't care about any kind of injury or.
Well, I reckon they know he had means of treating them.
Yeah. So do you think that they were doing that deliberately?
Yes, to cut down his workforce.
Did they serve in war zones?
I think Hal was in Vietnam,
Yeah.
and Penny was in Germany when he died, I believe.
Yeah. Did you ever go to any of the mass meetings?
No,
You
I
said-
stayed at home, kept Betty and Dennis.
Mhm. Were they the only ones in the house during that time? The only children?
Hal was in here. Hal had just come back from the service.
So you had him come back from the service and
He
then the
was
two
in,
younger children?
in the house at the time.
How did you feel when the Voting Rights Act passed?
Oh, it was wonderful that we were able to vote. And after they passed it, they didn't allow the black people to go up in the courthouse register. They had a little booth over there where they had sold gas. That's where they put the registration books out there. Most of the black people did not register in Forest County Courthouse. At that time, they registered down there. Now,
Because they registered with federal registrars and they rented a space?
put them out there.
Did people start registering really quickly?
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Was there a strong drive to encourage people?
Yes.
Yeah. What was the What was gonna be the first election? Was it like a supervisor's election